Okay. All right, so this session is being recorded and it will be placed on the RCLS YouTube channel probably tomorrow once the video has been processed. If you do require a certificate of continuing education or attendance, I will be sending a follow-up email also probably tomorrow morning along with the link to that recording, and just requesting that you contact me for a CE certificate and I'll send that off to you. So this session today is going to take about 90 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how the conversation goes. If you need to drop off for any reason, feel free to do so. You're not interrupting the presentation. We are going to ask that you keep yourselves muted unless the presenter, Drew, asks you to unmute or prompts any sort of questions. If you have any technical difficulties or any questions during the presentation, I'm going to be monitoring my email as well as the chat, so feel free to contact me either in either of those ways. So with that, I'm going to introduce Drew Mayer, who is a passionate public service-minded individual who has spent his professional career working with different sectors of government in their respective communities to foster positive change. He has worked in refugee camps where his main responsibility was helping refugees from different parts of the world work with government agencies to apply for jobs, enroll their children in school, and integrate themselves into the community at large. He's also worked with elected officials representing their communities at the county and federal level. His experience in this field has taught him that there is no better resource to promote positive action than a properly mobilized community. And the best way to harness this resource is through an active, hands-on approach. And so with that, we will turn it on over to Drew. Thank you so much for being here, Drew. And
thank you. Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jen, for all the help you've given me putting this together, as well as all the technical help you're providing during the presentation. So hello, everybody. My name is Drew Mayer. I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you all about community engagement and entrenchment today. Like Jen said, I've worked in the public sector for most of my professional life, and I've seen time and time again that the best method for improving an institution's status and functionality is to become as ingrained in the local community as possible. Feel free to type a question in the chat at any point. Jen has graciously offered to facilitate that, so she'll stop me with any questions, so feel free to do that whenever you need. If a question is going too long, or if it's something that I need to look up on my end, I might ask to table it, in which case we'll go over everything that gets put on the table at the end of the presentation. That being said, I encourage as much conversation as possible. I want as much back and forth as we can have. I want to incorporate as many different perspectives into this as we can. Normally I would hand out candy or something like that to encourage participation, but since we're all over Zoom, speak up whenever and you'll get a Tootsie Roll in the mail in 3 to 5 business days. So let's get started. If my PowerPoint would respond to me. Why are we here? Why are we talking about community engagement? Which aspects of library functionality do you think would get better if we did this? What do all of you want to get out of this? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. Anyone have any idea what they're hoping to walk away with today? Well, that is fine. What I'm hoping you get out of this is some of the tools to help ingrain the library into the community at large. Oh, I've got something in the chat. I'm seeing ideas for improving participation in programs, best practices, getting a greater support from the community. Exactly. Yeah, all of this is hopefully going to be things that we all walk away from this with. Ideas for reaching out to non-library users. That's very good. And one of the great things about what we're talking about, community engagement, is that all of these things will get better if you can improve your community engagement. It'll increase participation. It'll get people that aren't normally involved in the library involved. It should increase most aspects of your library's functionality. And try and keep those ideas in mind as we go through the presentation. And if we get to the end and something that you wanted to talk about hasn't been addressed, that's a great time to discuss it. For now, I'm going to go on to the next slide. So when we're trying to achieve community entrenchment, I want to focus on three areas in that, and that is increasing your visibility in the community, increasing your status in the community, and establishing government relations to facilitate all of that. Visibility, how aware is the community of your presence? How often are people thinking about your library? For status, we're talking about how much weight does your library's name carry? How closely is your branch associated with the goings-on in the community? And for government relations, we want to create some channels that you can use to navigate through civic projects and issues and establish relationships with people that can facilitate your community entrenchment and others. So if you get better with one, also get better.
Drew, your connection is a bit wobbly. I would recommend turning off your video to see if that helps.
Okay, no problem. All right, my video's off. Let me know if it persists though, okay? So we're going to start with increasing visibility. Do some special events and programs to onboard new customers or just use existing ones. And we're going to talk about a couple different events that you might be able to use, some ideas, or we can talk about some ideas that you already have, hopefully. And then we're going to take one of those ideas and use grassroots marketing techniques to boost attendance. And it'll also get people to think about the library more often. And I say this because we would ideally love to get a huge boost in attendance for special events, and this should help with that. But no matter what, it will get people thinking and talking about the library more, which is going to increase your visibility in the community. So let's talk about some of these special events and programs. I just have two events written down here. Seasonal events may be coming up for the holidays. Maybe you guys do something for Christmas or Thanksgiving. Things work. Do you guys do anything special? Anything from that?
Okay, I think Drew dropped off. So let's.
I'm back. Can you hear me? Sorry about that. My internet is being a little weird on me.
That's fine. What I'm going to suggest is how about I can showcase your slides if you want to call in by phone. Do you think that would be better?
Yeah, absolutely. What should I call? Hold on one second. Yeah, what's the number that I'd be calling? Would I be going on to the email for the Zoom invitation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me close out of this and then I'll call that number, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone, thanks for bearing with us. I'm just going to bring up the slides now. Okay, can everyone see the slides?
I can, Jen.
Excellent, thank you.
I can see them, but they're still like in PowerPoint, not like a presentation.
Yep, I'm just going to figure that out. Drew, are you there? Drew, are you there? All right, I'm gonna give this about another 2 minutes, and then I think perhaps we could always try this another time or record it, and then I can just I can send it out to everyone.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Sorry about that. Is everything working now?
Hey, I'm just trying to present your slides.
Okay. Let me know if there's anything you need me to do on my end for that, okay?
Sure. Okay, do you want to just continue on verbally, Drew, while I work on this?
Yeah, absolutely. If everyone can hear me, then no problem. And we're on the 4th slide when you get there, Jen. So we were talking about special programs. I mentioned ESL classes and seasonal events. If anyone else has any other examples that they might be using in their libraries, feel free to think of that as we move on. And we're moving on to the 6th slide, Jen, just so you know. So we're going to talk about one of those events, something you might be doing, or you feel free to use seasonal events as just an example. And we're going to apply grassroots marketing strategies to these. So why are we talking about grassroots marketing? Why does it matter? Can anyone tell me anything about grassroots marketing and why that might be important here? I can't see the chat right now, so you're gonna have to unmute yourself and talk. Anybody have any ideas why we might want to be talking about this? Well, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on to the 7th slide now, Jen. I'm looking for the fact that grassroots marketing relies on word-of-mouth communication to spread your message. I'm going to read you just a quick definition of it, just in case you're maybe unfamiliar with the concept. This comes from a marketing website. If anyone's interested, I can send you a link after the presentation. For small business owners who might not have deep pockets to sponsor huge advertisement campaigns, there has to be a way to get the message to the target audience effectively and in a cost-effective manner. This has led to the development and implementation of several low marketing ideas and tactics. One of these methods is grassroots marketing. Instead of broadcasting your message in hopes that it will appeal to your audience, you're going to target small groups, informing them about your products and services, in this case, a special program, and hope that they will spread the message by themselves to a much larger audience. It's a cost-effective marketing method. This form of marketing is based on personal recommendation of a product or service and word-of-mouth strategy backed by consistently supporting communities to promote the product. The whole idea is to connect with people, bringing your product and service to them at their place of work, leisure, or commerce. And obviously, you're not going to go kick in somebody's office door and slap a pen out of their hands and start yelling at them about the joy of reading and the importance of the library. But the idea of disseminating your message through word of mouth and letting it travel on its own is exactly what we want to do. By using these methods to advertise special programs and offers, we can ideally spread the word through the community. And while we want these advertising methods to succeed, the ad itself is in this case a vehicle for our actual broader message, which is that the library is an important community resource and institution. Success with these advertising methods should also increase the library's visibility overall. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go on? Nobody? Okay, I'm going to move on. Jen, do we have the PowerPoint up yet or no?
Yep, it's up. We're going through the slides.
Awesome. We should be on slide 8 by now. So first, you need to decide what exactly you're marketing. Special events, new programs, anything worth telling people about. Like I said, the holidays are coming up. Maybe you have something seasonal in mind. You're going to start with the people within easy reach, namely the people that are already coming into the libraries. Take some time during transactions to tell customers about the upcoming event, and then incentivize them to spread the word on their own. Incentives could be anything from raffle tickets. Maybe they get a raffle ticket for every new guest they bring. Late fee forgiveness, even something as simple as a few donuts. For a really cheap option that still feels prestigious, you could mail out certificates to everybody that brings a new person, and they could say something like, the X library would like to recognize so-and-so for their efforts in supporting their community. You could frame the certificate of whoever brings the most new people and hang it up in the library until the next event. Everybody loves to be recognized. Can anybody think of anything else that would help incentivize people to spread the word about these new programs? This is a really important part of the process because it's a catalyst that's going to get people to start spreading the word and, more importantly, get people to start talking more about your library. Anyone else have any other suggestions for incentivizing? I'm not hearing anything. You're not getting anything in the chat, Jen?
Well, Drew, I actually have a question. I think I'm going to play devil's advocate. If we're incentivizing people to come to the library, are we putting it out there that the library has not been successful in bringing people in? Like, what's the,
So my point.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Yeah, my point in using these advertising methods and to use expanding your programs as a vehicle to achieve community entrenchment is the fact that it isn't so much about boosting attendance. I don't know how much attendance any of you already get. Maybe you're already getting tons and tons of people. But the point is, if you use these grassroots word of mouth marketing methods for your events, you're going to get people talking more and more about the library. And that's going to increase your visibility in the community and move closer and closer towards our goal of engaging more with the surrounding community. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the next slide. Once you've incentivized people and you have them talking a little bit to one another on their own, next you want to start moving farther afield in order to reach people that the event is targeted towards. Let's say, for sake of argument, maybe you're doing a Thanksgiving event next week. Hand turkeys, Disneyfied stories about pilgrims and Indians, the whole works. Your target audience in that case would be children. So what can we do to reach this demographic? And then you can go ahead to the next slide. Some examples of some things you could do to reach a children's demographic. You can ask local schools to deliver flyers that are going to be handed out at the end of the day. Ask teachers to tell them to show their parents. You could ask to speak at a latchkey or another after-school event to advertise the program. You could spend an hour handing out flyers at stores where people are going to be shopping for little kids. Go to a playground in a trench coat with some flyers and candy. Don't actually do that. That one's a joke. Just to address one of the other examples we used, if you were hosting ESL classes, you could go to some immigrant-owned businesses or restaurants, anywhere that you know you might be able to get the word out. And you might need some extra hands to get this step off the ground. Most of you have full schedules and full lives, and you don't have time to go stand around at the store for an hour handing out flyers. To solve this, I recommend turning to an age-old business practice that has helped civilization grow and thrive for centuries. That, of course, is child labor. Students generally need to perform a certain amount of community service in their senior year of high school. This usually gets facilitated by their class advisors, their guidance counselors, government economics teachers, all people that the school can put you in touch with. Have them suggest the library as a place where they can fulfill these requirements. Even better, ask to go in yourself and give a short rundown of what they would have to do, of course, making it sound as easy and attractive as possible. And you can move on to the next slide, Jen.
Well, we actually have a question or a comment in the chat.
Excellent.
Yeah. An issue I personally see is that we don't keep track of every person who comes in. There would be no real way to know if a quote unquote new person came in.
So again, this isn't so much about boosting the attendance for the events. It isn't so much about going, oh, this is a new person, that's a new person. And I see what you mean about talking about incentivizing things like that. You might not be able to keep a record, but even if there was no oversight on who is a regular customer, who is not, even if someone ends up bringing people that you don't recognize and, you know, give them the raffle tickets for it, that part doesn't matter so much. The point is that if you're trying to get people to bring in new people, if you're trying to get people to spread the word and advertise themselves and have word of mouth spreading your message, the end result for program attendance isn't as important as the fact that people are talking more and more. The community is becoming more aware of the library and what the library is doing. I guess you don't necessarily need a list of regular customers and new people. The idea is just that you should see an uptick in attendance when these things become successful. I don't think it's necessarily important to know exactly, oh, you've never been here before, this is your first time, or anything like that. I think the idea is that once you get people talking more, you are going to get new people. You're going to get people that haven't been back for a while to start coming back. You're going to become more of a community fixture. And you don't necessarily need to know who exactly has never been here before and who's been here a bunch of times. The idea is that all of this are going to get more people to come, and more importantly, get more people to start talking and thinking about you. Does that make sense? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I'm just waiting for the person to respond. I don't see anything, so we can go on.
Okay, and again, there's also going to be a section at the end. So since I can't see you guys, I'm not in the Zoom meeting on my computer anymore. If you ask a question and maybe I don't answer it adequately, or I miss the point or something like that, just in the interest of keeping things moving, the final slide is going to be just a picture of a table, and we're going to use that part to talk about anything I missed. So if I didn't touch on what you were hoping I would, just remember that, and then you can bring it up again at the end, and we can hopefully explore it in some more detail. So I'm ready to move on to the 11th slide whenever you are, Jen.
Yep, we're at supplementing your efforts.
Excellent. Okay. So a great way to optimize the strategy is by also incorporating some top-down techniques. The grassroots methods are great for spreading the word about new programs, hopefully boosting attendance at low cost, but we're still relying on individual efforts, mainly by people who do not work for you. These grassroots techniques are designed to go from the bottom up, meaning you inform the individual, you incentivize them to spread the word, and therefore reach larger groups of people. A great way to optimize this is to also incorporate some top-down dissemination techniques, broadcasting your message to a wide group, hoping it filters down to your target audience. Some great ways to do this are through Facebook. You should all have a Facebook page or some sort of social media presence for your library. You should be updating it as often as possible. You want it to be as accessible as possible to the community. And every time you make a post or an update or an ad, another handful of people are seeing that post and you're reaching them, and they're going to have the library on their mind when it might not have otherwise been. Post on your page and on every possible town and community page whenever a new event is incoming. Another thing you can do is you can secure an interview on a local radio station or even a local TV news network if possible. Use the time to talk about how you benefit the community and why new people should be trying out the library while you advertise for your upcoming event. And you can also be posting on town, county websites. Go to your page, reach out to their administrators. Ask if you can post, say, hey, we have this coming up in a few weeks, we want to post an advertisement. If these strategies are all used effectively, you should not only be able to boost attendance and get the proper exposure for special programs, but you'll be getting people to think about the library. Even if somebody hears about an event and doesn't show up, you're still moving towards your main objective, which is getting people to think of the library in connection with the goings-on in their area, increasing visibility and furthering your entrenchment in the community. I'm ready to go to the next slide. Another fantastic way to increase your community or increase your organization's visibility, is by collaborating with other community organizations. Partnering with other organizations on public events or even seeing what works for them and employing some of those same tactics in your events are both great ways to get better at community outreach. Use what already works. Take advantage of existing inroads to the community. If there's already an organization you know about, maybe the Knights of Columbus in your area are really successful. Maybe they're often putting on community events that a lot of people go to. Call them. Ask if you can get involved in an upcoming event that they're putting on. Or better yet, invite them to be a part of yours. Just as an example of this, for Halloween this year, in Liberty, I know they did a trunk or treat. I don't know if any of you guys have that in your areas. They blocked off a parking lot and had people show up, and then all the kids could go around to different trunks and get candy. And it was a great way for different organizations to collaborate, put on a community event that benefited everybody. I know the theater in Fallsburg was involved in it. I know there was like a motorcycle club involved in it. And every group that was a part of that event got their name out there, got people to think about them and know who they are and maybe consider them in the future for whatever product or service they offer. I'm ready to go to the next slide. So what are the well-known community organizations near you? Who does a lot in the community? Who has a good relationship with their community? What are some examples of popular events or fundraisers you've seen in your area? Can you think of anything that they do that might work for you too? Just as another example of using decidedly successful techniques in your organization, something my fraternity used to do in school is we would have to put on a philanthropy every semester. We would raise a bunch of money and donate it to charity. And we would look at what the other groups did on campus, and we would see what's popular and what's unpopular. We would go to tons of philanthropies, and we noticed that all the events involving food, contests, and dogs were usually really popular. So we decided to use this as inspiration for a fall event where we had teams competing, carving pumpkins at our house, and we had a bunch of therapy dogs running around, and there was food trucks in the parking lot. Just incorporating some simple, successful strategies we saw gave us the best philanthropy turnout we had in years. We raised tons of money, had a lot of people showing up to the house, and had people excited for the next time we put on a philanthropy event. I'm ready to go to the next slide. Something else is that groups often work better together. It divides the workload. It alleviates some accountability. It attracts a new audience, maybe the Ancient Order of Hibernians events that don't go to your events. This allows for a different set of perspectives too. I think you're going to have a hard time finding a group that isn't at least open to the idea of working with you. And the worst somebody can say is no. Go to their meetings, send a letter, Send a message to their group's social media account. Don't be afraid to be a little bit obtrusive. Stick your nose into the business of the area. You're the library. You belong there. Next slide. Oh, excuse me, I lost my spot real quick. Okay. You should be volunteering to help the library or help at popular events to get the library out there. You want the library to be associated with as many public events in your area as possible. Call and ask, how can the library be a part of this? We heard you're putting on this event and we would love to help. Do you need any help doing X, Y, or Z? We have a room in the back that we mostly just use to hide from the books when they come alive at night. Maybe you could use that as a venue for your event. Anything like that. And you can go on to the next slide. Even though I'm stressing the importance of being assertive and persistent, you also need to be diplomatic and work well with others. Make sure that you can respect the boundaries of whatever groups you end up working with. There's nothing wrong with getting involved, but make sure you're not just trying to take over. I've seen benefits and fundraisers completely fall apart because multiple groups were collaborating and everybody wanted to be in charge and changing everything. It's very, very important to keep an open line of communication with any of the groups that you end up partnering with. Make sure that they know they can always come to you with their concerns. Remember that all you really need out of this is to be present and helpful. Give a positive impression. Your goal is for people to see you at these events and start thinking of the library in conjunction with community service and public goings-on. All you're trying to achieve is a closer relationship with the community. Don't lose that opportunity because you were trying to make someone else's event exactly how you think it should be. And if the groups that you work with have a good experience, they're more likely to be more welcoming in the future. People that are in those groups might also be involved in other groups that you could collaborate with down the line. Everything is an audition. If you collaborate with a group and it goes well, it's going to happen again in the future, most likely. And you can move on to the next slide. Now we're going to talk just for a second about increasing status. As more events are attended and contributed to by the library, you'll eventually start being associated with public goings-on in your area. Hopefully, this is going to lead to a cycle where it becomes easier and easier to get involved because people are going to already think that the library might want to get involved. And status is one of the more ethereal, less practical concepts that we're going to get into. I'm including it because it will be a good way to measure your effectiveness of your efforts. If you see things that make you think the library is gaining more and more legitimacy and their name is being brought up more and more, then your efforts are paying off. And you're going to see those dividends when more people start coming to your programs. Some example of an increase in your library's status are some signifiers are when other groups start approaching you to collaborate on public events. When partnering with different organizations starts to seem like a matter of course to all parties instead of something unexpected. And like I said, when you start seeing an increase in attendance, that's a good sign that you are doing the right things. And you already have the status that comes with being an age-old institution. Libraries have been around forever. They're a hallmark of civilization. So don't be afraid to get involved. You don't really need a reason. You're the library and you want to help. And that's all the rationale any of your potential partners should need. I'm saying it won't seem strange that you're trying to get involved with another group's event. And that is really all I wanted to say about status. You can go on to the next slide. Let's talk about establishing a relationship with your local government. A close relationship with your representatives can be invaluable when trying to strengthen ties with the community. It is literally what they do for a living, as well as for a variety of other things. They often have far-reaching contacts. They know huge networks of people. They can be a great resource. They usually have some sort of calendar with upcoming events in their constituencies because generally they try and make an appearance at those when they can. A phone call from your congressman or senator could help you secure a radio interview and can become a backdoor to getting involved with other community events. and they can facilitate relationships that you might not have otherwise had the chance to establish. We want to improve community relations, so a great starting point would be to call them and ask, hey, which libraries in your constituency do a really, really good job with this? Ask which libraries they know of are the most active in their communities. Ask to be put in touch with them. I'm sure they're not going to know offhand, but a few short hours of intern research later, and you'll probably have a phone number or an email you can use. Also, while we're on the subject of reaching out to other libraries that you know are good at this should be step one. If you know about any libraries that do a great job with this should be the first place you call. This is something you can also pursue on your own. The best possible way to get better at something is to find somebody who's already doing it well and do what they're doing. That's the main idea behind partnering with other community organizations. Not just piggybacking onto their events to get your name out there, but also watching how they go about maintaining community relations and using that in your efforts. Call libraries in the city, libraries that you know participate. Call around and find out. Your representatives are a great way to widen this net and some resources you might not know about, but you can and should be supplementing that with your own research. As you meet more people through your representatives, other community organizations, and other libraries you get in touch with, you're extending your reach. Every time you call someone to ask about their community engagement tactics, even if they have nothing to offer, they still might be able to put in touch with someone who can help. And then you can go to the next slide, and this is just a few links of some different offices that you should be trying to get in touch with. Congress, State Senate, State Assembly, and then for county and local government, you're just going to go to their website, and then you can find a number there for whichever representative you're trying to get in touch with. I'll leave it up there for a couple of seconds in case somebody wants to take a picture. And we can also go back to this slide at the end if need be. But for now, we're going to move on to the next slide. We're going to talk about channels that can be used to establish these government relationships. I recommend an initial phone call to get somewhat acquainted with the representatives or realistically their staff that you're going to be dealing with. A simple, hi, my name is so-and-so and I work with this library. I'm interested in doing A, B, and C in my community, and I was really hoping you could point me in the right direction. Representatives at the state and federal level are constantly planning events. This is a great way to create a back channel to be included in some. Even if they have nothing for you when you call, leave your contact information. And then the next time you're calling, you're going to be someone they at least kind of know. These offices, get tons and tons of new calls from new people every day. So it really helps to distinguish yourself from all of these new faces and names. You can go to the next slide. Ideally, you're going to want to get to the point where they know that they can reach out if they're doing something in your area that the library can be a part of. And you can reinforce this by following up every few weeks. Hi, just checking in to see if you're doing anything in my area this month. We've been working on this event, and we would love the opportunity to spread the word. These people are very busy, and depending on how organized their office is, it can be easy to get lost in the mix. So you do want to make sure you are following up. This goes back to what we were talking about don't be afraid to be obtrusive. Sometimes you have to be a little annoying. A diplomatic approach is always best, but don't feel bad about calling. Improving their district is what these people signed up for. It is their job. And you can go to the next slide. And let's talk about leveraging good governmental relationships into community entrenchment. So like we said, we want to create this dynamic where they know you want to get involved. You know you can reach out to them to get involved. This could be things in the community that the library is putting on or that the library is volunteering to help staff, anything to get your name out there and become more ingrained in the community, as well as letting the library be used as a venue for public forum events. One of the things Representative Delgado likes to do is he'll go to different locations and he'll have intimate like town hall events. I know this hasn't been happening since the pandemic. I'm not sure if he started up again or not, but your library could be a potential venue for something like that. And hosting or helping with events in conjunction with your representatives is going to help you establish legitimacy. Again, by legitimacy, of course, I'm talking about the weight your library's name carries, your institution's status, the amount of importance that people are associating with you. And libraries, like I said, can already claim a boatload of legitimacy just from being the library. But when community-minded people start seeing you around at these important events, they're going to be more eager to get the library involved in future events.
Drew, I'm just going to interject for one moment. It is important to
Yeah.
keep in mind that we are nonpartisan. And
Yes.
so when it comes to elected officials and town halls, that is something to be leery of.
Absolutely. I'm talking about this in the sense that you want to use their network of contacts, you want to use their positions to reach a larger audience yourself and to be included in public events. Definitely do not want to be taking sides or getting involved or anything like that. If your library ends up hosting some sort of a function where people are going to be talking back and forth about things, I would absolutely advise you to not get involved in that. We want to take advantage of their position and the things that they can help you do and the relationships that they can facilitate. We are absolutely not trying to get involved in politics.
Thank you. And we have in the chat, it says using the library for town halls can be problematic in the age of COVID, as we are limited in terms of numbers of people who are permitted to attend these events.
Right, absolutely. And the town hall was just an example of something that you could maybe be a venue for. And like I said, for the town halls, I was using Representative Delgado as an example because he hosts these in different public buildings. I don't know if he's even doing that anymore because of the pandemic. I'm assuming this is something that is going to happen again once things get to be a little bit better, knock on wood. But this is just an example. Using your library as a venue for things is probably not going to be as possible for the immediate future, but we're also talking long term. A lot of these things are going to be difficult with the pandemic. Public events in general have gone way down since all of this started. So ideally, this is going to be mostly things that you can employ once that starts to get a little better. Like I said, the trunk or treat happened in Halloween. The community is still doing things, and there's plenty of opportunity to get involved, to host events or collaborate on events. But yes, if it's something that you think is going to be unsafe, put anyone at risk with the pandemic, then absolutely please use your best judgment and don't put yourself in a position where something bad could happen or somebody could get sick. Just using different examples for different ways to get involved. You're gonna have to pick and choose the times for certain events. Does that make sense? Are there any other questions with that?
The person says, thank you. I don't see anything else in the chat.
Okay. In that case, you can move on to the next slide. So in conclusion, becoming more active in the goings-on that are already happening in the community is going to make your library more entrenched. It's going to provide you with opportunity after opportunity to engage. There's no way to sit in the library and have all of this happen for you. You're going to have to get out there. Using these grassroots marketing strategies should help improve attendance for special events, but will also get the library's name out there more. It'll get people thinking about you more. All of that is going to facilitate more community engagement and entrenchment. People are more likely to come in with questions, come in with just for business if they're hearing about you more. Partnering with other community organizations is a phenomenal way to get exposure, as well as seeing some successful examples of community engagement and incorporating those tactics into your own efforts. And lastly, that your local government and representative can be a great resource to broaden your library's connections. Get in touch with other libraries who might be able to help with community engagement and facilitate your involvement with different events in your area. Are there any other questions? You can move on to the next slide. It's just a picture of a table. I don't think anything ended up getting tabled, which is great. But are there any questions now that we've reached the end? Anything you'd like me to go back to? anything that didn't make a lot of sense, any questions that I didn't address thoroughly enough?
Drew, I'm hoping that you can talk more about the process. Oftentimes we can only dedicate one staff member to just a few hours a week to even be involved with this process. So what takes priority, what to do first, what to do last? Can you review that?
Absolutely. So I'm assuming you mean in context of like using the grassroots method to advertise for your programs. Is that correct?
Any and all of it.
Okay, sure.
Do you, do you go to the elected officials first, or do you set up blasts on social media first? What's the timeline?
Well, that's something that's great about all of these methods is that they all work in conjunction with one another. Helping in one section is going to help in all of the other sections. So the timeline is really not important. If you're trying to advertise for a new program coming up, in that case, your timeline would be the first thing you would want to do is make sure that you're spending time whenever you're going through a transaction with someone at your library. You want to tell them about this and then tell them about what the incentives are for spreading the word. That's your first step. And then they're all going to hopefully go out and spread the word on their own. As far as if you're trying to optimize that by also putting out a message on Facebook or going to a radio station to advertise, it doesn't really matter if you do that first or anywhere along the way, as long as all of that is happening in culmination to whatever this event is that you're hosting. As far as establishing relationships with local government, when you go about doing that, the first thing you want to do is call, let them know who you are, let them know why you're calling, what you're interested in, if you're hosting any events, if they can help at all. And then from there, it's all about just following up. But it doesn't matter whether or not you do that before you start advertising for things, or if you put on some new programs and then you get around to calling your local officials. The order of events doesn't really happen, or doesn't really matter, excuse me. Working on one is going to make it easier to work on all of the other ones. Maybe you're worried about being able to get enough people for a special event, regardless of any of these grassroots methods that we're talking about. In that case, the first thing maybe you want to do is to approach a different community organization for some help. It's going to be up to each individual branch to decide where their strengths and weaknesses are and what could use the most work. And then you can delegate it out that way. And as far as what you mentioned before about people being busy, I completely understand. Everyone has full schedules, full lives, and a lot of this involves putting in some extra work and maybe putting in some extra time. You don't need to block out hours of your day to do this. If you're informing people during a transaction about an upcoming event, that should happen naturally. That won't take any extra time. If you were to take out 10 minutes this day to call your congressman and ask them if they could put you in touch with any libraries, and then tomorrow take 10 minutes to call some of those libraries, all of this is going to happen at your own pace. And of course, it's only going to be able to happen at whatever pace your work schedule allows. But there's no deadline for it. There's no quota. As much work as you are able to put into it, that's what you're going to see out of it. So if you can get a few people from your branch to block off 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes at best, a few days of the week to work on some of these things, then over time, you're going to see an improvement. It's not so much about, oh, I need to spend 3 hours working on community entrenchment today. I need to go out into the community and evangelize about the library for a couple hours. It's more about incorporating the methods we talked about into your day-to-day, into just little things that you're doing here and there to prepare for events, to strengthen connections with the community, with other organizations, and with your local government. And you're going to see those results over time as people start thinking more and more about the library, and the library starts becoming more and more concerned with the public goings-on in your community. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you. And I do want to bring up that for everyone on this call, RCLS does have an RCLS advocacy committee that anyone is welcome to join, you know, staff, administrators, trustees. It's comprised of anyone from an RCLS member library where we do come together and we are focused on, you know, working to become further involved with the legislators. We haven't delved too far into community nonprofit organizations within the communities, but there has been outreach towards schools. So that is certainly a resource and anyone can join. You can always just email me. So I just want to put that out there. Okay,
Excellent.
we have in the chat, Drew, thanks for the inspiration coming out of the pandemic. As more events take place in person, it is good to be reminded to get out there. Another idea for an incentive is to ask the friends of the library to recognize someone from the community who has been a super spreader with library advocacy.
That is a fantastic idea. I think choice of words there is a little dubious, but yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea. That kind of goes back to what I mentioned about maybe hanging up a certificate, something like that. People love getting recognized. People love hearing that, you know, you did a great job and you helped your community. Yeah, absolutely. I love the super spreader idea as long as it's used in the right context. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Anything else I could address? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I'm just waiting to see if anyone else placed anything in the chat. You're also welcome to unmute any attendees who are here.
And I'd also like to apologize for my technical difficulties. I'm sure the presentation would have been a lot better if you could watch me slowly go cross-eyed as I look at this PowerPoint that I've been looking at for the last 72 hours straight, but I hope I was still able to get the message across.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this time.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Drew?
Well, if not, thank you all so much for being here and listening to me speak. I really hope I was able to help. And if you need to be put in touch with me with any other questions, I know that you can get in touch with me through Jen, and also the PowerPoint has my email address, so feel free to reach out.
Yep, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. I'll send out a follow-up email about tomorrow or so, and have a great weekend if I don't speak with you before then. Thank you, Drew. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Take care, everyone.
All right.